You know what the biggest destructor of the land is the neighborhood, the neighbors. I mean, there's something wrong with the education system because they just treat it like a garbage dump. And so what I'm doing is recruiting neighbors that have some sort of consciousness about water and nature, and they're saying, hey, pack out what you pack in, you know, simple rules that we learned as children. I believe we're going to need that Billy the Kid story, though, during the 10 dry months. So when the school kids and college students come out, professors, you say, Billy the Kid walked through. Really? Yeah, right under that tree. Had a tent. There are mountain lions out there, and there are bobcats, and there's rattlers. That's a great place to do storytelling. Billy the Kid hung out here. Somebody dumps like some grass trimming, you know, and then somebody puts some branches in it, and somebody says, oh, hell, and they put a couple beer bottles on, and somebody says, oh, here's a pallet, and then somebody else dumps, oh, grandma's couch, let's put that there, you know. You just get this big mound of stuff, you know, with old hoses and radiators, and you know, the ethics is everybody does it, so I'll do it too. It's none of my business. People could band together, and that's the thing. They could kind of prevent the inevitable from happening so quickly by banding together, carrying and picking up trash, and creating recreational citizen science opportunities, you know, for schools and universities. And walk with the water. I think it's incredible. I was so disappointed in that film because I really wanted the water to go all the way to the pond, and it got like 3/4 of the way there, and then it stopped. And I'm like, oh no, you didn't get to the pond. And it's been over a month. And so last night it rained again. There was a cloud over the ranch, and it rained, and it was a little bit over the pond, but not enough rain. Most of it evaporated, so I was really sad. And I've started experimenting with taking the hackberry seeds, they're like little berries, and the sumac berries, and I'm trying to find out. I've planted some, and I want to try to grow trees maybe in my greenhouse so we can grow them this high, because I want to bring the school kids and the university students on their little projects. You know, they've got these fraternities and sororities, and they have to do a project to maintain their status. I say, well, come on out, plant some seeds, plant some sumac seeds and some hackberry seeds, and we'll build up the perimeter of the pond. Wow, cool. And they'll come back 10 years from now, and they'll see that tree they planted. Go, wow, I planted that tree, you know, it's now 10 feet high. What's an overstory? Basically, it's the tree canopies. And you're right, it's not the whole Gaia, but it's a big part of it. Wetlands around the world face problems from human pollution, climate change brought by humans, dams by humans, agriculture, and urban development. So since 1900, half of the world's wetlands have now disappeared. So that's a lot of wetlands. And as you can see from the map behind me, all those little tributaries feed into the rivers that feed into the oceans. So wetlands are a big part of that, big part of it. And they do some good things. They suck carbon from the atmosphere, and wetlands trap all kinds of pollutants, heavy metals, nitrogen, and they break down suspended solids. So wetland is basically inundated and saturated with surface water and groundwater. There's many kinds of wetlands in science. It's more or less frequency and duration. So we're talking here about the temporary wetlands water. Some of it stays all year round. But down here in the south, they don't even put our wetlands on the map. So there's all kinds of wetlands, many, many kinds, and it depends on the elevation. We'll show you that in a second. So what? What do we care about an ephemeral wetlands pond that emerges seasonally and is dry 10 months of the year? Well, I think it's important because, you know, it's very controversial. You know, the political parties in the United States keep bouncing it back and forth, as we'll see. And as I've already said, the wetlands are disappearing, and they're disappearing rapidly. So it's going to add to water shortages globally. So what? Science defines wetlands as an assemblage of the overstory trees and the understory plants and scrubs, the bushes, you know, and the hydrology people, they define a wetlands. It filters out chemicals, pesticides, fertilizers, being cleansed by these wetland ponds. So I think they are important. There's 135 shrub wetland ponds. Your upper elevations, 5,000 and 8,000 feet, are going to have different kind of wetland than the real low ones in a valley where you might get pond water that stays all year. We're sort of in the middle. We're about 4,000 feet elevation, and we're in the Chihuahuan Desert. Well, before the 1980s, wetland consciousness was basically about birds, migratory birds, you know, the International Migratory Bird Treaty. 1987, the EPA, the Army Corps of Engineers, Fish and Wildlife in the United States, gave some guidelines for the waters of the wetlands. Then President Bush came along. I didn't vote for him, but he actually endorsed wetlands mitigation, like he wanted to take care of wetlands. So that was pretty cool of him. So we appreciate President Bush for that. But then he got all kinds of blowback from, guess who? Oil and gas, agriculture. A lot of the business community said, hey, you can't tell us what to do with our land. Those wetlands are our land. If we want to bulldoze them over, we're going to do that. That's part of American freedom. So June 2015, President Obama talked about WOTUS, Waters of the United States. So in 2015, Congress overturned Obama's wetland waters, WOTUS protection, and good for Obama, he vetoed it. Well, then the timeline comes right up to the present. The Trump administration, 13 states sued to halt the EPA, led by the fossil fuel, again, by agriculture. Then the real estate developers, they want to just bulldoze the wetlands over so they can put suburbs on it. Trump WOTUS rule exempted temporary wetlands, those emergent temporary waters from rainfall, rainstorms, thunderstorms. That's what we're talking about today. So, and they even include the language, the stock watering ponds are now exempt from WOTUS. So when you see an ephemeral wetlands pond, like it's temporary, it's emergent from the rainstorm water, well, 10 months of the year, you're just going to see a dry patch of dirt. Good place to put up targets for shooting practice, and good place to dump your garbage so you don't have to pay the landfill fees. So what? So what? Ephemeral wetlands pond to the east, fed by temporary waters, rainstorms gushing through the Alameda Arroyo, smaller tributary, crosses our small ranch on Dunn Drive, no longer protected by WOTUS. Well, the so what for me is many amphibians are uniquely adapted to wetlands ponds that are ephemeral because they don't have fish in them. there's just a lack of awareness of the amphibian life. Now, 1 month a year, you can go there and you'll see the pollywogs, and you can scoop up a handful of fairy shrimp. The most fabulous thing is the dragonflies will mate and feed at that pond. So I also like the overstory, the hackberry tree, the sumac tree, even the mesquite tree. So one of the things that brings tears to my eyes is when I walk to the pond and somebody's been there with a chainsaw and cut down the overstory. Right now there's one hackberry tree left. Well, that's an important story because I don't have all the details pinned down, but I got the scent of a story. There's an untold story that I'm getting pretty excited about. Yeah, working with the scientists would be very good. However, in the reality of the university is they don't have very much time to actually go out and do field work. So the city of Las Cruces has a management plan adopted in 2015 for the Chihuahua Desert, the Arroyos, providing natural pathways for surface water runoff to the Rio Grande. The Rio Grande then runs into the ocean, the Gulf of Mexico. Something about wildlife species. So I got to give them credit for that. But state land is for profit. Mikhail Bakhtin has two kinds of answerability. One, moral answerability to be that person that intervenes when they see things collapse around them. And the second kind of answerability is just to be a bystander and don't do nothing, just watch it all collapse. So Grace Stan and I formed an LLC, limited liability company, and allows us to lease about 640 acres, maybe two or three times that amount. And we call it East Mesa Trails, because these are the trails where Billy the Kid and Pat Garrett were. So we're going to lease the land. Then the state land office guy is really, really helpful. He thinks we should lease a whole bunch of it because Arroyos have potential, not only for their recreational activity, for equestrian trails, for backpacking, for bird watching, not just for economic development. We're talking about the quality of life. Every species of life is important to our own survival. If they're part of the whole chain, the food chain, then you're going to go and disrupt that food chain. Well, because why? Because you want to build more suburbs because the homes are 3 times as large as they were in 1970 and the people are 50% less happy than they were in 1970, But what Billy the Kid was doing, he was defending the poor farmers against the big land developers that were coming into the state and that were kicking all the people out.